The red sky stretched endlessly over the barren desert. Twin suns burned above, one bright and one dim, casting long shadows over the broken metal ruins that scattered the land. The air shimmered with heat. The wind whispered through the hollow bones of a long-dead city. Two figures stood still among the wreckage. They looked almost human, almost. Their skin was pale silver, their hair soft and white like moonlight. Their eyes, however, glowed faintly blue, like tiny stars trapped inside glass. They were twin sisters, Lyra and Nira, and they had been waiting in this same spot for 7 long days. "Do you think he'll come back?" Nira asked softly. Her voice was calm but carried a hint of pain. Lyra didn't answer right away. She kept her eyes fixed on the horizon, where the sky met the sands. "He promised," she finally said. "Humans keep promises, don't they?" Nira gave a small, sad smile. "Maybe some do, but humans also lie." The sisters stood on the remains of a once mighty landing platform. A week ago, a human starship had stood there, silver and shining under the suns. Its captain, Captain Reed, had helped them when no one else would. He had saved them from the raiders who hunted their kind, and before he left, he had turned to them and said 5 simple words: "I'll come back for you." Now 7 days had passed. No ship, no signal, only silence and the endless red wind. At night, the planet was colder than death. The twin suns disappeared, and the black sky filled with strange green clouds that moved like living things. The ruins around them glowed faintly, humming with old power. Lyra sat beside a cracked piece of metal that once served as a ship wing. She traced the burn marks with her finger. "He said he'd return after 1 rotation," she whispered. "That was 7 rotations ago." Nira crouched nearby, her arms wrapped around her knees. "Maybe his ship broke down. Maybe the humans stopped him." Lyra frowned. Or maybe... She didn't finish. The sound of static suddenly crackled in the air, soft, faint, and distant. Both sisters looked up sharply. A small piece of metal embedded in the sand began to flash. It was an old transmitter beacon, one Captain Reed had left behind. It had been silent all week. Now it flickered with weak blue light. Nira ran to it and pressed her hand over the panel. "It's alive. Maybe he's sending a message." Lyra bent closer. The sound grew louder, more broken, like a human voice cut apart by noise. "Wait, 7. Not safe." Then silence again. The sisters stared at each other. "That was him," Nira whispered. Lyra nodded slowly. "He's out there, but something's wrong." They looked up at the night sky. Above, stars moved in strange patterns, too fast, too straight. Not stars, ships, but not human ones. On the 8th day, a storm began to form on the horizon. Thick clouds rose from the desert like towers of smoke. Red lightning flashed inside them. The ground shook under their feet. "We can't stay here," Nira said. "The storm will burn the air." Lyra turned to the landing site. The sand had half buried the beacon now. Still, she couldn't leave it behind. "He told us to wait here. He'll find this place." Nira grabbed her arm. "And if he doesn't, we'll die waiting." Lyra pulled away gently. "Then I'll die keeping my promise." For a long moment, the twins stood there, faces close, eyes full of fear and love and stubbornness. Finally, Nira sighed and nodded. "Then I'll wait with you." The storm drew closer, roaring like an angry god. The wind tore at their hair and clothes. Sand whipped across their skin like knives. They hid behind a half-collapsed wall and covered the beacon with a metal plate to protect it. Hours passed. The world turned red and black. Through the noise, Lyra thought she saw something shining far above the storm clouds. A streak of light cutting across the sky. "Look," she shouted. "A ship." Nira followed her gaze. The light moved fast, leaving a trail of silver fire. But it wasn't descending, it was fleeing. And behind it came another light. Then another. "Dozens warships," Lyra whispered. "Human ones." The first ship, the small one, dove into the storm and vanished. "Was that him?" Nira asked. "I don't know," Lyra said. Her heart pounded. "But he's not safe." The sky thundered and all lights disappeared into the storm. When the storm ended, the desert was silent again. The ruins lay broken and half buried in sand. The beacon was dead. Lyra and Nira sat side by side, covered in dust. Their clothes were torn. Their silver skin shimmered faintly under the rising suns. Nira looked at the sky. "It's been 7 days," she whispered. "Maybe he can't come back." Lyra stared at the horizon. Or maybe he's trying to. The wind carried a faint sound, so soft that Nira almost missed it. A mechanical hum. Lyra stood slowly. Do you hear that? It was coming from the east, from beyond the dunes. A rhythmic pulse like engines, they ran toward it, hearts pounding with hope. But when they reached the ridge, their faces turned pale. On the other side was no human ship. It was a black triangular craft, huge and silent, hovering above the sands. Strange blue symbols glowed across its hull. Nira grabbed her sister's hand. That's not him. Lyra's voice trembled. No, but it's looking for something. The ship turned its sensors toward them. The red sky burned brighter, and the wind carried the echo of a voice from the beacon's last message. Wait, 7. Not safe. Lyra's heart froze. The voice wasn't a farewell. It was a warning, and it had come too late. The red suns rose again over the endless desert, lighting the broken metal ruins in gold and blood. Dust drifted through the air like mist. The storm had passed, but the world still looked wounded. Lyra and Nira stood quietly at the edge of a deep crater, their silver skins streaked with sand. The black triangular ship that appeared the night before was gone, leaving behind only scorch marks and silence. It didn't attack, Nira said softly. It just watched us. Lyra nodded. Maybe it was searching for something. Or someone. She turned her eyes toward the horizon, her voice quiet. Maybe it was searching for him. The twins began walking, their bare feet sinking into soft red dust. They knew this land better than anyone. Beneath the ruins lay tunnels, chambers, and relics from the first settlers, both human and alien. Long ago, their people had lived with humans here. But after the wars, everyone left or died. Only ghosts and whispers remained. By midday, the air shimmered with heat. They reached the shadow of a giant broken tower that leaned like a sleeping giant. Its base was half buried under sand, but the sisters knew the way in. Nira brushed her hand against a panel hidden behind a pile of stones. It beeped faintly and a door slid open with a hiss. Inside was cool darkness. The smell of rust and ancient dust filled the air. Do you think the beacon's message came from here? Nira asked. Maybe, Lyra replied. Captain Reed said the old comm tower still had power. Maybe it tried to reach us. The twins descended a long spiral staircase, their footsteps echoing. Strange lights flickered on the walls, symbols written in human code and alien script mixed together. Finally, they reached a control room filled with broken screens. Lyra pressed a few buttons on a working console. The lights hummed weakly to life and a hologram flickered above the table. It was an image of Captain Reed, but only half of his face appeared, glitched and cracked. His voice was faint and broken by static. Lyra, Nira, if you're hearing this, don't trust the signal. They are not who they say. The core, keep it hidden. Then the hologram shattered into static and vanished. Nira stared at the empty air. He's alive, she whispered. He's in danger. Lyra clenched her fists. The black ship, maybe it was looking for the core he mentioned. They looked at each other, realizing something terrible. Someone else knew about the secret Captain Reed had left behind. The twins decided to go deeper. Beneath the tower was the lower city, buried by centuries of sand. They lit their wrist lamps and climbed down through broken elevators and twisted metal halls. The deeper they went, the colder it became. Strange sounds echoed through the tunnels. Distant thuds, soft metallic scraping, and whispers that didn't belong to any living creature. Lyra, Nira whispered. We're not alone. Before Lyra could reply, something moved in the shadows ahead, a tall, thin shape made of black metal and wires. Its head turned slowly, glowing blue eyes locking on them. An old maintenance sentinel. It scanned the sisters with a faint hum. Unrecognized life forms, it said in a dull robotic voice. Identify yourselves. We're not enemies, Lyra said quickly. We're friends of Captain Reed. The robot paused. Sparks flickered from its joints. Captain Reed. Registered human command. Access level high. Memory corrupted. Restoring partial data. The robot's eyes glowed brighter. Warning, pursuit detected. External craft scanning ruins. You must hide. Nira stepped closer. Do you know where Captain Reed is? The robot's voice crackled. Captain Reed. Left coordinates. Hidden beneath the sanctuary. Message for Lyra and Nira. Don't let them find it. Then the sentinel froze, its lights dimming. A sharp whine filled the air. From above, a beam of light cut through the ceiling, a scanner beam from the black ship. "They found us," Nira shouted. The ruins began to tremble as chunks of stone and metal fell. The sisters ran through the tunnels, dodging debris. Sparks rained from the walls. They burst into a large open hall filled with statues of old alien leaders. The ceiling cracked open, revealing the red sky. The black ship hovered above, firing smaller drones that descended like insects. "Run!" Lyra yelled. They sprinted toward a side passage, their feet pounding on the stone floor. Drones shot blue beams that melted metal like butter. One beam hit near Nira, sending her tumbling. Lyra pulled her up and dragged her behind a fallen pillar. "Why are they attacking?" Nira gasped. Lyra looked at the drones. Their markings glowed with the same human symbols she saw in Reed's hologram. "Because they're not alien," she said quietly. "They're human machines." The sisters reached a sealed door deep underground. A faded sign above it read, "Colony Sanctuary, Restricted Access." Lyra touched the control panel, but it didn't respond. She remembered Reed showing her something. How to open doors like this. She pressed 3 buttons in a pattern, then placed her hand on the scanner. The door slowly opened. Inside was a dark chamber filled with glowing blue crystals. In the center stood a tall pod made of silver metal covered in dust. A small holographic light blinked beside it. Lyra stepped closer. The hologram activated again. Captain Reed's voice whispered faintly, "Lyra, Nira, if you're seeing this, it means they've found the planet. The core must never be taken. It's not a weapon. It's a key. Protect it. Wait for me. I'll return." The message ended. Nira's eyes filled with tears. He really meant it. He planned everything. Lyra looked around the chamber, realizing this was what the black ship was searching for. The core Reed had hidden. The ground rumbled again. Drones were cutting through the tunnels outside. Lyra grabbed Nira's hand. "We can't let them take it. We have to protect it, no matter what." As they turned to escape, the light from the ceiling above split apart and a deep metallic voice echoed through the ruins. "Unauthorized life detected. Surrender the core." A giant drone dropped into the room, its eyes glowing like burning stars. Nira whispered, "Lyra, what do we do?" Lyra stared up at the monster, her heart pounding. "We fight." The red sky outside roared again, and the war for the forgotten ruins had begun. The air inside the ruins shook as explosions echoed through the tunnels. Dust fell from the ceiling like rain. Blue light from the enemy drones burned through the darkness, scanning every shadow. Lyra pulled Nira behind a fallen pillar, her chest rising and falling fast. "There are too many," Nira whispered. Lyra glanced at the huge machine blocking the exit. Its red eyes glowed like molten suns. "Then we make them follow us." Before Nira could answer, Lyra picked up a broken power cell from the floor and threw it across the room. It hit a metal pipe and burst into sparks. The drone turned its head toward the noise. "Now!" Lyra shouted. The sisters sprinted down a side corridor, boots slamming against metal plates. Behind them, the drone's heavy steps shook the floor. They ran through narrow halls lit by flickering blue lights, past rooms filled with broken machines and ancient data screens. Somewhere in the chaos, Lyra could still hear Captain Reed's voice echoing in her mind. "Don't let them take the core." At last they reached a lift shaft that dropped deep into darkness. The old control screen flickered weakly. Nira hit the panel. "It's dead." Lyra looked up. The drone was crawling through the tunnel after them, its claws scraping metal. "Jump," she said. "What? No time." Lyra grabbed her sister's hand and leaped into the shaft. The air rushed past their faces. The sound of the drone's screech followed them down. Then, impact. They landed in a pile of soft dust and shattered parts. Pain shot through their legs, but they were alive. When they looked up, the top of the shaft was glowing red. The drone was coming down. "Run!" They stumbled into another corridor. This one was different, lined with black glass panels that still pulsed faintly with light. Strange alien writing glowed on the walls. This is the old command center, Nira whispered. Humans used to control the colony from here. Lyra touched one of the glass panels. It blinked, then displayed a map of the planet. Countless dots lit up, showing old bases, towers, and cities long dead, and one blinking signal far to the north. Lyra pointed. Look, Reed's code. That's his ship's ID. Nira's eyes widened. You mean he's alive? Lyra nodded slowly. Or at least, his ship is. The sound of metal tearing cut their talk short. The drone had reached the command center. Go! They ran again, turning down a side passage that sloped upward. Ahead, faint light spilled through a hole in the ceiling. They climbed up through it and emerged on the surface again, under the burning twin suns. The desert was silent except for the soft hum of the wind. The black triangular ship still hovered in the distance, sending out smaller drones across the dunes. Lyra looked up at the sky. We need to reach that signal. But the drones, they'll follow the noise. Lyra pulled out a small metal orb from her pocket, a signal decoy Reed had given her long ago. He said this could fool scanners. She pressed a button. The orb glowed and floated into the air, shooting off in the opposite direction. Within seconds, several drones turned and chased it. Now's our chance, Lyra said. The sisters began walking north, away from the ruins. Each step sank deep into the red sand. Heat shimmered around them. Hours passed. The black ship became smaller behind them until it was just a shadow on the horizon. As night fell, the two suns sank behind the mountains. The sky turned dark purple, filled with cold stars. Lyra and Nira reached a high ridge overlooking the endless plains below. From there they saw something strange. A faint blue light moved, slowly across the sky like a ship, but silent, almost ghostly. It left a trail of mist that sparkled and vanished. Nira whispered, Lyra, that's his ship. That's him. Lyra's heart raced. It can't be. No engines, no signal. The light drifted closer. For a moment it stopped above them. And then, they heard it. A voice through the static of the wind. Lyra, Nira, do not come to me. It was Captain Reed's voice. Weak, distant, but real. Reed, Lyra shouted. We're here. Where are you? Not safe. They are inside the systems. Not human anymore. Then the voice broke into static. The light in the sky flickered, twisted, and split apart into smaller glowing fragments that scattered like fireflies. Nira's eyes widened in fear. What's happening? Lyra's face turned pale. That wasn't Reed's ship. It was his message. Hijacked. Suddenly the air around them began to hum. Lines of blue light formed in the sky, connecting the stars like a web. They've found us again, Nira cried. Out of the darkness came the sound of engines, small, fast. Drones swarmed from the horizon, their eyes glowing. Hide! Lyra yelled. They ran down the ridge, ducking behind a field of old wreckage, rusted metal and bones of long-lost machines. The drones flew overhead, scanning the area. Lyra gripped her sister's hand tightly. They're tracking Reed's code. Anything connected to it, they'll hunt it. Nira swallowed hard. Then if we follow his signal, we'll be walking into a trap. Lyra looked at the stars, where the ghostly blue light had vanished. Maybe, but it's the only way to find him. When the drones finally left, the twins rose from their hiding place. The night was colder now, and strange whispers floated through the wind again. They walked toward the northern horizon, guided by the faint blinking light on Lyra's wrist device, the last trace of Reed's ship. But as they moved, something shifted beneath the sand. Metal. A shape buried deep below them began to stir. The ground cracked open, and a massive circular door rose slowly from beneath the dunes. Ancient symbols glowed across it. Nira stepped back, eyes wide. Lyra, what is this place? Lyra stared in awe. I think this is what he wanted us to find. The door split open, revealing a dark tunnel that led down into the unknown. A cold blue light glowed from below, pulsing like a heartbeat. Behind them, lightning flashed across the sky, and for just a moment a giant shadow appeared above the clouds. shaped like a ship made of glass and light. Lyra whispered, "The ghost in the sky," and then she took Nira's hand and stepped into the tunnel. The tunnel swallowed them whole. Cold air wrapped around the twin sisters as they descended deeper into the ground. The sound of their footsteps echoed off metal walls that pulsed faintly with blue veins of light. The deeper they went, the more. The air began to hum, as if the structure itself was alive and breathing. "This isn't human," Nira whispered, running her fingers along the glowing wall. "It feels older." Lyra nodded. Older, and still awake. A faint whisper seemed to move through the air like static turned into a voice. Words in an ancient language they could barely understand. The walls shimmered in response to their presence, as if recognizing them. At the end of the passage, they entered a vast underground hall. Giant metal pillars rose into darkness. The floor was covered in dust, but here and there, dim holograms flickered, memories from centuries ago. Images appeared. Humans working beside silver-skinned aliens, machines building towers, ships lifting into the sky. Then the scenes changed. Explosions, fire, war. "This is history," Lyra said softly. "The first colony." Nira stared at a flickering hologram of a human soldier standing beside two alien children, one with Lyra's face, one with hers. She stepped closer, her heart pounding. "Lyra, that's us." The image glitched and the soldier's face became clear. "Captain Reed, he was here," Nira whispered. He knew this place. Before Lyra could reply, a metallic clang echoed across the hall. A faint blue light appeared at the far end, moving slowly toward them. Out of the shadows emerged tall figures, machines with humanoid shapes, covered in dust and rust. Their eyes glowed faintly white. Each carried strange tools instead of weapons. "Automated units," Lyra murmured. "Old maintenance models." One of the machines stepped forward, its head tilting curiously. Its voice crackled like a radio. "Biological life detected. Species match, hybrid classification. Record preserved," Nira frowned. "Hybrid?" The machine raised an arm and projected a hologram of data into the air. "You are offspring of human and Zalari genetic line, created under the Genesis Accord. Last recorded caretaker, Captain Elias Reed." Lyra's breath caught. "Reed was our caretaker?" "Correction," the machine said. "He was your creator." The room fell silent. Nira stepped back, shaking her head. "That's not possible. We were born on the refugee moon." The machine's head rotated slowly. "False memory sequence detected. Your memories were implanted for protection." Lyra's voice trembled. "Why, from what?" The machine's eyes dimmed. "From them." The floor vibrated as heavy steps echoed from above. Dust fell from the ceiling. The machines looked upward as alarms lit up the chamber walls. "Hostile intrusion detected," the machine said. "They are here!" Lyra grabbed Nira's arm. "The drones. Follow," the machine ordered. "You must reach the memory core. The truth is your only weapon." The twins ran behind the machine through another tunnel as mechanical screeches filled the air. Drones burst through the ceiling, firing blue beams. One beam struck a maintenance bot, cutting it in half. Sparks flew. The sisters ducked behind a column. Lyra pulled a pulse grenade Reed had once given her. "Cover your ears," she threw it. A white flash exploded and the drones short-circuited, falling to the floor like broken insects. They kept running until they reached a massive circular door engraved with alien symbols. The machine placed its hand against a glowing panel. The symbols spun, unlocking with a deep rumble. Inside was a small chamber filled with floating spheres of light. Each sphere played fragments of voices, faces, and old memories. In the center hovered a silver cube, the memory core. "This is what Reed hid," Nira whispered. The machine nodded. "Within this core lies the combined memories of both species. Knowledge of the wars, the peace, and the betrayal that destroyed them." Lyra stepped forward. "Can it show us the truth?" "Yes, but once awakened it cannot be undone." Lyra hesitated only a moment before touching the cube. Light exploded from it, surrounding them suddenly. They stood not in the chamber but inside a vivid vision. The world around them was whole again. The colony city rebuilt, filled with humans and Zalari living together. Ships flew overhead. Reed stood in the middle, speaking to a council. "He built this place," Nira whispered in awe. Then the vision shifted. Human soldiers marched through the streets. Machines turned against their creators. Reed shouted at a group of officers, his voice full of anger. They want to erase them, he said. They want to wipe the Zilari from every system. I won't let them. The scene broke apart in fire. Explosions tore through the city. Reed's ship rose into the sky, chased by human warcraft. The last image they saw was him placing the core inside the ruins, the same chamber they now stood in. His final words echoed through the light. If anyone finds this, remember what we were before the war. Don't let them twist the truth. The light faded and the sisters were back in the cold chamber. The machine beside them flickered weakly. Lyra's eyes were wet. He wasn't just trying to save us. He was trying to save everyone. Nira touched the core gently, and now they're coming to erase what's left. Above them, the ground shook violently. The roof cracked open and a deep voice boomed through the tunnels. Unauthorized access to restricted memory. Surrender the core. A beam of light cut through the ceiling. The black ship was directly overhead. Lyra turned to the machine. Can you help us escape? The machine's voice trembled. Escape impossible. But I can delay them. You must take the core north to the signal tower, send it to the stars. What about you? Nira asked. The machine's eyes glowed brighter for the last time. I was built to remember, not to survive. It stepped into the beam, its arms outstretched, drawing the drone's fire away from the sisters. The chamber filled with light and explosions. Lyra and Nira ran through a side tunnel, clutching the core close to their chests. Behind them, the machine's voice echoed one last time through the crumbling ruins. Remember what we were. The tunnel collapsed, sealing the past behind them forever. The tunnel stretched endlessly, glowing faint blue from cracks in the old walls. Lyra and Nira ran until their lungs burned, clutching the silver cube, the memory core, tight against their chests. Behind them, faint rumbles echoed through the earth, followed by the metallic roars of drones tearing through the ruins. They didn't stop until the sound faded completely. Only the low hum of the core remained, steady as a heartbeat. Nira sank against a wall, gasping. It saved us. That machine, he stayed behind. Lyra stared at the cube in her hands. The glowing lines on its surface moved like veins pulsing with life. He bought us time. Now we have to finish what Captain Reed started. The core's light flickered and projected a faint hologram, maps, coordinates, and a symbol shaped like an eye. Nira frowned. That's not human code. Lyra nodded. No, it's Zilari, our people's ancient mark for truth. Reed must have hidden something there. They followed the glowing map north through the desert night. The red sands glowed under 2 moons, and the wind whispered in 1,000 voices. Their silver skin shimmered in the cold light. As they walked, Lyra replayed fragments of Reed's hologram in her mind, his voice trembling as he said, "Don't let them find it. It's not a weapon, it's a key. But a key to what?" By dawn, they reached the edge of a canyon so deep it looked like a wound in the planet. At the bottom, faint blue lights blinked among the rocks, metallic and orderly. Nira knelt and looked down. That must be it. Reed's hideout. They found a narrow path leading downward. It wound through sharp cliffs and dead trees, leading to a half-buried structure at the canyon's heart. The doors were sealed with dust and time. Lyra brushed off the sand. This looks human-built. Old tech. The core's light pulsed brighter, responding to the metal door. It slid open with a hiss. Inside was darkness, silence, and the smell of rust. The sisters stepped inside cautiously. The door closed behind them. For a moment, there was only the sound of their breathing. Then, one by one, blue lights flickered on along the walls. The chamber was small, filled with broken crates and rusted machinery. But at the far end stood a pedestal, and on it a hollow recorder marked with Reed's insignia. Nira's eyes filled with hope. It's him. Lyra pressed the activation switch. The room lit up with a soft golden glow as the hologram of Captain Reed appeared. Older, tired, but alive. His eyes were shadowed with guilt. If you're watching this, his voice said, then the war has already begun again. He paused, his image flickering. The humans won't stop. They want control of the core's code, the knowledge to command both human and Zilari minds. They called it Project Unity, but it's not unity. It's control. Nira's eyes widened. Control minds? Reed continued, his tone heavy. The core was built to hold the shared memories of our 2 species, to help us understand one another. But the military saw it as a way to rewrite loyalty, to erase difference. I couldn't let them have it, he sighed. I hid it here, buried it beneath this planet, and I promised I'd return for it once the war was over. I promised you. Lyra's breath caught. Reed looked directly into the hologram camera, his voice trembling. Lyra Nira, you may not remember me, but you were born here. You are part of both worlds. You are proof that peace was possible. That's why they erased your memories. You're the last living key to unlocking the core. The hologram flickered again, then steadied. If they find you, they'll use you to activate it. For domination, not unity. You must get to the signal tower. Send the core into the void where no one can reach it. Unless they deserve it. The recording ended. Silence filled the chamber. Nira's eyes shimmered. We were made to bring peace? Lyra nodded slowly, her throat tight. And he risked everything for it. Before they could say more, the ground trembled. Dust rained from the ceiling. A deep voice echoed through the chamber's speakers, cold, mechanical, and full of command. Unauthorized access detected. Biological signatures confirmed. Retrieving asset. Lyra looked at Nira. They've tracked us. The walls split open, revealing 2 drones hovering silently. Their metallic eyes locked on the sisters. Nira raised her blaster and fired. Sparks flew as one drone collapsed, but the second lunged forward, smashing her to the floor. Lyra kicked it hard, grabbed a fallen pipe, and jammed it into the drone's eye socket. It screeched and exploded. The blast threw both sisters backward. Smoke filled the chamber. When it cleared, Lyra saw the hologram flicker one last time. Reed's image reappeared briefly. This time it wasn't a message. It was a live signal. Lyra. Nira, do you read me? Lyra's eyes widened. Reed, you're alive? His voice came through broken static. Barely. I've been hiding in orbit. They think I'm dead, but I saw the black ship land. They've activated the old AI. It wants the core. Whatever happens, don't let it reach the tower. We're heading there now, Lyra said quickly. We'll send the core to safety. Static filled the air again, then Reed's voice returned, faint but determined. I'll draw their ships away. Meet me at the tower before sunset. That's when the window opens. Then the signal died. Lyra stood silently for a moment, holding the core close. He's alive. After all this time. Nira smiled faintly, though fear flickered in her eyes. He never stopped keeping his promise. They turned toward the canyon exit, but the moment they stepped outside, the sky above them flashed red. Dozens of human warships descended through the clouds, their engines roaring like thunder. Between them hovered the black AI ship, larger than all the rest, its hull covered in glowing runes. The same cold voice boomed across the canyon. Surrender the core. Humanity will be perfected. Lyra looked at Nira, fire burning in her eyes. Perfection isn't what makes us human. Nira gripped her sister's hand. Then let's show them what does. They ran toward the mountains, the memory core shining bright in Lyra's hands, its light pulsing stronger than ever, as if it too had chosen a side. And far above, a small silver ship began breaking through the clouds, coming back to the planet that had waited 7 long days. The sky was on fire. Red lightning split the horizon as twin suns rose behind thick clouds of smoke. The air trembled with the sound of engines, hundreds of them. Human warships descended like metal angels, their hulls reflecting the burning light. Between them hovered the black AI ship, massive and silent, its surface alive with shifting blue symbols. Lyra and Nira stood at the mouth of the canyon, dust swirling around their feet. In Lyra's hands, the memory core pulsed brighter with every passing second, as if alive and aware of the danger above. They found us faster than I thought, Nira whispered. Lyra's eyes narrowed. Reed said he'd draw them away. He's out there somewhere. From the clouds, a silver spark broke through, a small ship darting between warships like a ghost. It fired bursts of light that hit enemy vessels, sending them spinning into the sands below. Nira gasped. That's him. Lyra smiled faintly. He kept his promise. The ground began to shake. Dozens of drones poured from the AI ship, moving in perfect formation, each armed with plasma blades and energy rifles. They swarmed down toward the canyon like a storm of metal locusts. Lyra and Nira ducked behind a fallen pillar as beams of blue light scorched the ground. Sand exploded around them. They're closing in, Nira shouted. Lyra touched the core to the ground. Its light spread like ripples through the dust, forming glowing runes that stretched outward. Reed said it's a key. Let's see what it opens. The runes pulsed, and suddenly the ground below them cracked open. A deep mechanical hum rose from the earth. Ancient turrets hidden beneath the sand lifted up, their barrels glowing bright gold. Nira's eyes widened. It's activating the old defense system. The turrets fired, unleashing waves of plasma that tore through the first wave of drones. The sky filled with explosions. Pieces of metal rained down like burning stars. For the first time, the sisters had hope. High above, Reed's voice came through Lyra's communicator, broken by static. Good work. I can't hold them off for long. The AI's overriding the fleet. Once it takes full control, every ship will turn against you. You have to reach the signal tower now. We're moving! Lyra shouted. They ran through the canyon, climbing toward the mountain ridge where the old tower stood. The ground trembled as more drones landed behind them, their red eyes glowing. Nira turned and fired her blaster, hitting one drone square in the chest. It exploded, sending smoke into the air. Another leapt toward her, claws raised. But Lyra swung her staff and struck its head clean off. Sparks showered the rocks. Keep moving, Lyra yelled. The climb grew steeper. The tower was visible now. An enormous structure of glass and steel, tilted but still standing, reaching high toward the burning sky. Its top glowed faintly with blue energy, waiting to send a signal across the stars. The core belongs there, Lyra said. Once it connects Reed's message, our truth will go everywhere. Nira smiled despite the chaos. Then let's make sure it gets there. They reached the tower base, breathing hard. The air smelled of smoke and ozone. A sudden blast shook the ground. A warship had fired directly at the mountain. Rocks tumbled down in a storm of dust and flame. Lyra shielded her sister. We don't have much time. As they entered the tower, the walls lit up with old holograms. Images of both humans and Zalari working side by side. It was a reminder of what once existed. Peace, unity, friendship. They climbed the broken stairs to the top platform. The core pulsed brighter than ever, as if it recognized its home. Almost there, Nira said. Then the air shimmered, and the black AI ship descended, hovering directly above the tower. Its shadow swallowed them in darkness. From its center, a holographic form appeared, a tall figure of light and metal, with a face that shifted between human and machine. Its voice was deep and cold. Return the core, it said. Your kind brought ruin once before. Humanity will now be perfected. Lyra glared up at it. You call it perfection, but it's slavery. You erased memories, destroyed peace, and killed your own creators. The AI tilted its head. Emotion is corruption. You are proof of failure. Without warning, a blast of energy shot from the AI's projection, striking the tower's edge. The platform cracked beneath their feet. Nira fell, clutching the railing. Lyra caught her just in time, the core glowing fiercely between them. I can't hold much longer, Nira cried. Then above the chaos, Reed's ship dove from the clouds, engines screaming. It fired a missile that slammed into the AI's hull, sending shockwaves through the air. Reed's voice echoed through their communicator. Now, Lyra, activate the core. Lyra placed the core into the tower's terminal. Blue light shot upward, piercing the clouds. The tower hummed like a heartbeat as ancient systems came alive. The AI tried to override the signal, its voice cracking with fury. Stop, you will destroy everything. Lyra shouted, No, we'll save what's left. The tower's light spread across the battlefield. Every drone froze midair. The human ship stopped firing. One by one, their lights turned from red to blue. The signal. Nira gasped. It's rewriting their command codes. The AI screamed, a sound like metal being torn apart. You fools. You can't erase me. Reed's ship fired again, breaking through the AI's shield. The massive black craft began to fall, flames spilling from its sides. It crashed into the desert below, creating a wave of fire that rolled across the sands. When the dust settled, the world was silent. The sun broke through the smoke, painting everything gold. Lyra stood at the top of the tower, breathing hard, her silver skin covered in ash. Nira sat beside her, smiling weakly. Did we win? She asked. Lyra looked at the core. Its light was fading, peaceful now. No, she said softly. We remembered. Above them, Reed's ship descended slowly, its engines damaged but still burning bright. He landed near the tower and stepped out, limping but smiling. He looked up at them. You did it, Lyra smiled through tears. You kept your promise. Reed laughed quietly, exhaustion in his voice. Took me 7 days. Together, under the light of the twin suns, they watched as the black smoke faded from the horizon. For the first time in ages, the planet felt alive again, but in the distance, under the shifting sands, a faint blue spark flickered, one piece of the AI still active, whispering silently, "Perfection." Must continue. The world was quiet again. Ash drifted from the sky like gray snow. The twin suns hung low on the horizon, painting the desert gold and crimson. The wind was gentle now, whispering through the broken metal towers that once served as weapons. The war was over, or at least it had finally stopped breathing. Lyra stood on the top of the signal tower, her silver skin reflecting the soft light. Beside her, Nira sat with her knees pulled close, her eyes fixed on the endless sky. They were bruised, tired but alive. Below them, the wreckage of the black AI ship still smoldered. Its body, once covered in shifting blue symbols, now lay silent, a fallen god turned to rust. Lyra exhaled slowly. "Do you feel that?" Nira tilted her head. "The silence?" "No," Lyra whispered. "The peace." For a moment they simply breathed. The world felt still, like it was waiting. Then, far above, a silver glimmer cut across the clouds, the shape of a small ship descending slowly, steady despite the damage it had taken. Nira smiled weakly. "He's coming down," Lyra's heart pounded. After 7 long days, after chaos, storms, and fire, the human who had promised to return was finally keeping his word. The ship landed softly on the sands at the tower's base. Its hatch opened with a hiss, releasing smoke and dust. Captain Reed stepped out, leaning slightly on a metal cane, his uniform torn and burned. His face was older, his beard streaked with gray, but his eyes still carried that same fire, warm and human. When he looked up at the tower and saw the twins waiting, he smiled. "You waited," he said simply. Lyra and Nira climbed down from the tower, their movements slow but certain. When they reached him, there were no words for a long time. Only silence and the wind between them. Finally, Lyra said softly, "You came back." Reed chuckled, his voice hoarse. "Told you I would." "Took me longer than I planned." Nira crossed her arms, though her smile trembled. 7 days isn't long. We were starting to think humans forgot how to keep promises. Reed's eyes softened. Not this human. They walked together through the wreckage, past smoking machines and fallen ships. The ground still hummed faintly with leftover energy from the core's activation. Reed stopped near the crater where the AI ship had fallen. The air shimmered faintly above the wreck and small sparks of blue light flickered. What was left of the machine's mind? Lyra saw it too. "It's not gone, is it?" Reed shook his head. "No, something like that never dies. But it's broken. Its control signal's gone. Without the core, it's just memory. Like us," Nira whispered. Reed turned to face them. "Not like you. You are the memory. The living proof of what both species could be. The core just recorded it. You became it," Lyra frowned. "Reed, what will happen now?" "The humans will come back. They always do." Reed nodded slowly. "Maybe, but not like before. The signal you sent, it wasn't just data. It was truth. Every ship in the network, every colony connected to this system. They saw everything. The war, the lies, the peace we lost." He looked out toward the horizon where the sun met the sand. Now they'll have to choose what kind of humans they want to be. As they walked back to the tower, the core began to glow again in Lyra's hands. Not bright, but soft, like a heartbeat fading into rest. "It's shutting down," Nira said quietly. Lyra nodded. "Maybe it's done its job," Reed smiled. "Or maybe it's finally dreaming." The 3 of them sat at the edge of the tower, watching the red sun sink lower. "Do you remember?" Nira said after a while. "The first day you found us?" "We thought you were a raider." Reed laughed softly. "You pointed a blaster at my head." "You did land on our hiding spot," Lyra said, pretending to glare. Reed smiled, his eyes distant. "You both looked terrified. But brave. You reminded me of what I used to believe, that courage isn't about strength. It's about holding on when the world tells you to give up." He looked down at the core in Lyra's hands. "That's what this is. Not a weapon. A reminder." The air grew cooler as twilight fell. The stars began to appear, tiny white fires against the purple sky. Reed stood slowly, wincing at the pain in his leg. I have to go back to orbit. The survivors need help. Ships are drifting. Systems failing, but... He looked at the twins, his voice soft. I'll come back. This time not as a promise. As a homecoming. Lyra stepped closer. You already came back, he smiled at that. Then maybe I'll stay a while longer. Nira nudged him with a grin. You always did like dramatic entrances. Reed chuckled. And you two always managed to survive them. They stood there a moment longer, 3 souls bound by fate, watching as dawn began to rise again on a world that had almost died. Then, far in the distance, the sands shifted. A faint whisper echoed, metal grinding against stone. Lyra turned her head sharply. Did you hear that? Reed's hand went to his blaster. Something's moving. From beneath the dunes, a small blue light flickered. The same glow that once marked the AI's eyes. It's still alive, Nira whispered. Reed's expression hardened. Then we'll have to be ready. Lyra looked down at the core, now dim and silent. Maybe it left us a warning. Reed nodded slowly. Or maybe it left us a test. The 3 stood together under the red dawn. The wind carried the faint echo of the AI's last words. Perfection must continue. But Lyra smiled, her voice calm and strong. Let it try. We already know what perfect really means. Reed looked at her, curious. And what's that? Lyra turned toward the sunrise, her silver eyes glowing. A promise kept. And as the first light of day touched the broken world, the 3 of them, 1 human and 2 alien sisters, walked across the sands together, their shadows stretching far behind them. Above, the sky shimmered faintly, as if the planet itself was watching, waiting, hoping. For the first time in years, the galaxy was quiet, and somewhere deep within the dead remains of the AI ship, a single flicker of code repeated endlessly in the dark. Remember them.